Okay, it's December 19th, 2020, and Donald Trump was just impeached by the House of Representatives on 2 articles of impeachment yesterday. And I am putting this up today, and I'm going to be putting up some more of these. I just feel like in the surrealness and the craziness that this has become in the land of Donald Trump, that I have to, just for my own sense of sanity, kind of record my thoughts in a way that when it's all over, maybe my grandkids and their grandkids can use it, look back, and kind of get a firsthand account of what was going on. Because the way things are looking, the story may not even get told the correct way. We have a problem, and his name is Donald Trump. And honestly, the problem isn't so much Donald Trump as it is the people of this country having fallen for Donald Trump. That's really what the problem is. And I'm going to speak at length on how I feel we got here. My name is Ed Coban. I live outside of Niagara Falls, New York, just outside of Buffalo, New York. Short drive from Toronto, Ontario, Canada. I live about 5 minutes from the U.S.-Canadian border. I have a master's degree in mental health counseling, a bachelor's degree in sociology. I am a behavior intervention specialist, and I work with handicap or developmentally disabled people. Handicap is not the preferred nomenclature anymore, and I should know better than to say that. But again, we're going to talk a little bit on just how saying the wrong thing the wrong way can cause such a problem these days. So we'll get back to that. But basically, again, I've been meaning to do this for months and months. I've seen this coming. The minute Donald Trump actually looked like he could actually be president, I started to feel like something like this was necessary. Because in the future, they're going to look back and they're going to study this time. They're going to wonder how this happened, how intelligent or seemingly intelligent people could fall for such a thing again, especially since we have history to look back upon to really make us understand how we should know better than this. But clearly we don't. So I'm going to start putting up a series of these things to kind of talk a little bit and break it all down into different topics that kind of led us to where we were. Because if I was to just sit here and ramble, first of all, no one would listen. And I'm not really kidding myself that anyone's going to listen to this anyways. I'm doing this to get it out of my system and be on record, so that, at least someday maybe someone's digging through some digital archives and they see this and realize that not everyone was fooled. And I say that sincerely. I mean, we're talking about a country right now that is supposed to be considered the best in the world. And, the America that was 10 years ago is not the America that we have today. And we may never get back to what we thought we were supposed to be. Our experiment in democracy may be at its end. And we have, you can't just blame Donald Trump, man. You gotta blame this country and our intellectual laziness. I really feel that the biggest problem we're facing right now is just a lack of understanding. I don't want to call people stupid, but it's kind of hard not to. But I'm not going to do that because it's stupidity. I digress. So here's what it is. We have worked hard to try not to have a clue. We live in the age of information right now. When I grew up, and I'm going to say this a lot, when I grew up, there was no cell phones. There was no internet. There was no microwave when I was a kid. It was just like my generation, and I'm part of what they call Generation X. And there's the baby boomers who are the kids who were all born when all the soldiers came home from World War II. And they all grew up, and then that's who ended up leading all the peace riots and civil rights changes of the 60s, to actually end up being elderly and kind of being the opposite of that. They've become what that generation seemed to really, push against back in the day. I just don't understand it. I do understand it. And what it comes down to is it does come back to that movements, the things that they tried to change, civil rights, equality, the more that minorities and the lower classes gained rights, the more the upper classes and the elite began to, realize that they can't let the lower classes get too smart. And that's been the classic historical way of keeping people in line. And the crazy thing about it is we have the ability right now to learn anything we want. If you live in America, you have access to knowledge upon knowledge. It's just ridiculous. There was a time when people weren't allowed to read. Not necessarily in this country. Though in this country, yes. But that's not what I'm referring to. I'm referring to through history, world history. Look back when everything was run by kings and monarchs, and their main enforcers were the church, and they used the Bible. And people didn't read the Bible because they didn't know how to read. They weren't even allowed to read so that it could be read to them. They could be told what God wanted. They could be told what the king had just decreed. They were dictated to. Now think about it. Dictators are named that for a reason, and that's because they kept the people that they ruled over in the dark about things, so that they would only have to believe what they were told. And now we have this kind of anti-intellectual movement, the conservatives, and I'm not trying to be partisan, I'm just talking truth. And it's the conservatives and the Republican Party in general, mostly, though both sides are guilty, have had this anti-intellectual movement going on for a long time, where they tell you that school indoctrinates liberal ideas into people, and college is just this scam. And if you can keep people wanting to be uninformed, then you don't have to make reading illegal, because they don't want to be bothered by it. They literally look down upon intelligence. It's I can't believe it. And I'll be posting examples. We're going to touch more on this. This is really just an introductory one. I don't want to get on a rant already. I threw this together. I've been thinking this in my mind for a while, that I want to do this sort of thing. And so I just threw together the camera and the microphone, and my production value is going to be low on these first couple ones, but I do plan on upping that a little bit. And I certainly, I'm going to look a little better. It was a long day yesterday. Everybody was watching the impeachment. It's like we got a hangover because it was just ridiculous. What we have going on today, just a quick update, is Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, is considering holding off on sending the articles of impeachment to the Senate, because Mitch McConnell, who will go down in history as the biggest piece of crap to ever work in the U.S. Senate, and we're going to touch on this guy, him and a couple of the other senators, all the while they're complaining that the Democrats are being partisan, are the ones who have already said that they are not going to impeach Donald, or remove Donald Trump due to impeachment. They are not going to call witnesses. They are coordinating with Donald Trump's lawyers. So literally, I mean, just so you understand, the job of the Senate in all this is to act as jurors in for every sense of the word. They're jurors, and their job is to hear the case and be what's the word I'm looking? Impartial. That I can't believe I had a hard time finding that word. Impartial. And they flat out said, Lindsey Graham says, I am not trying to be an impartial juror here. He's another senator, and he's another piece of work. There's so much more to it, so basically, I digress. I'm going to digress a lot in these. So the Speaker of the House, after kind of forcing this through, in an attempt to try to get it in, because the election cycle is coming up for Donald Trump for his second election, which is the scary thing here. So she is trying to delay it to kind of force the Senate to be a little more, a little less partisan about it, and set up the rules to be fair. They're not going to. This is just a comedy of errors on both sides. The Republican and the Democrat Party are not what they used to be. Rome is falling. So I'm shaking. So this is just, I appreciate anyone who took the 11 minutes of their life to listen to me rant right now. But I will be putting more of these up. I'm going to have a name for it, and I'm going to touch on things. I'm going to back it up. I know how to do research. I'm a clinician by trade, and I'll be able to cite my sources. I may not look like I know what I'm talking about, but as you guys go on, you're at least gonna think that I don't come from a place of ignorance. Which I live in a country right now that is overflowing with ignorance in every sense of that word. I have family members, I have friends who I love, who I take a bullet for, but who, when it comes to this sort of thing, they are completely duped. The media right now is corporate run. It's run. It's totally propaganda. News is not what it used to be. So that's where we're at. We're gonna touch on a lot of different things. But again, this is just my first thing. I had to get it off my chest today. With the impeachment happening yesterday, I figured I got to get on to doing these things so that it's going along, in real time with what's happening. I apologize for not doing it before, because the last 3 years have been chock full of excitement and crazy, that I wish I would have documented real time at the time. But we will get back to it, and that's about it. So I'll be back. Thank you, maybe the one or two people who accidentally watched this because they stumbled across it, and hopefully anyone who watches in the future, my grandkids or their grandkids, this essentially is going to be an explanation and an apology for the mess that you're cleaning up as we speak, and it has a lot more to do with Donald Trump, and that's about it. So signing off.